With us today. We have a special guest with us today with the passing of Don Rickles. His good buddy, Rich Little, was kind enough to call in this afternoon. Thank you for calling in, Rich.
Oh, my pleasure.
How long have you and Mr. Rickles been friends? How far back did you two go?
I've known Don Rickles for about 60 years. And I first met him, I was living in Hollywood on Franklin Avenue, and I was living next to his mother, Etta. Lived next door to me. I didn't know who she was. She introduced herself. Then Don would come by on Sunday for dinner, and I didn't know who he was either. He was just a young comic who I didn't even know. And I remember one day he rapped on my door, and I opened it up, and he said, "Are you Rich Little?" I said, "Yes." Are you slapping my mother? He said, "Listen, leave my mother alone, okay? Go down to the park and find yourself a girl." And then he slammed the door. And that was my introduction to Don Rickles. I'd never met him before. And then, of course, he went on to become an icon. And then down through the years, I used to see a lot of him because he's on a lot of those Dean Martin roasts. And I was privileged to do 24 of them, and he did about 19. So I would, see him a lot. And I couldn't believe at the mind that this man had. Most comedians, when they're saying a joke, they're thinking of what they're going to say next. But Don was already thinking what he was going to say after that. He was two thoughts ahead all the time. And there's very few people that can do that. I can only think of Robin Williams and Jonathan Winters being that good. Don was the best of the lot because he could think so quick and so fast and always funny. I can remember on one Dean Martin roast that I did, the one we did to Dean Martin himself, and Don was the MC, I can remember falling off the chair onto the floor with tears in my eyes. I was laughing so hard I couldn't even control myself. I thought I'd wet myself. I really did. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life, and that's the roast to Dean Martin, if you ever want to look it up. It's a classic.
Terry and I did that. We jumped on YouTube and started typing it in right away, and your roast of Don Rickles was one of the first ones that came up. And we watched a clip with you on Carson with him. Because he was always a couple of jokes ahead and so quick, was it ever intimidating being on a show with him? Or I suppose you knew you had to be on your A game.
Well, if he insulted you, it was an honor.
Yeah.
And he had no mercy, He could talk to the Queen of England, and he wouldn't pull back. He would go after the Queen. And I remember many times at the White House with Reagan, he would go after Reagan. And I remember standing there going, gosh, I hope he hasn't gone too far. This is strong stuff, And it was, as I said, it was an honor to be insulted by him. I remember the first time he ever went after me, I was thrilled. He said, "Rich, I say to you in all humility and from the bottom of my heart, you're a pain in the ass. Why don't you put your teeth in backwards and bite yourself to death? Rich, if you ever found out who you are, you'd want to be somebody else. Anyway, go take a long walk on a short pier."
Our guest, Rich Little, talking about the passing of Don Rickles this morning. I was watching the outtakes of him with Robert De Niro during Casino, and it was hilarious. Robert De Niro couldn't remember a line, and Don Rickles sitting over there goes, "You got one line. How many millions are they paying you? You've got one line over there with your method acting and your breathing. Can you remember one line? But someone get him a cue card." And he was just ripping on Robert De Niro, the star of the movie, while they're filming the scene, and it was hilarious. I was rolling.
Would you go out to dinner? I mean, when's the last time that you were with him?
I was with him about a month ago.
Oh, not long.
We had dinner and over Piero's. He still could come up with the put downs, and he hadn't lost it. So I don't think he lost too much of his mind, a little bit, but not much.
Mr. Rich Little, thank you. By the way, how's People I Have Known and Ben, your book?
My book is doing very well, and it's selling quite well. And I'm still performing at the Tropicana in Vegas 5 nights a week. So, as long as I have my health, your health is everything, actually. My back is still strong, and my mind is pretty good, George.
Thank you, Rich Little.
Okay, well, if I pass away, give me a call, will you?
Thank you so much for checking out our highlight reel. To hear more of what probably should have been left on the cutting room floor, head to 92kqrs.com, hover over the On Demand tab, and click Zep and Tear.